Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for being here today. My name is Leila and I'm happy to present our paper to you. I will be presenting on behalf of my co-authors, and this work is an extension of Nippun Goyal's master's thesis. There is growing interest within the HCI community in using multi-device or cross-device environments to support co-located group work. The personal and shared devices that are offered in cross-device environments provide tremendous potential to support both parallel independent work and also communication, coordination, and group awareness that happen during collaboration. In multi-device environments, cross-device interaction techniques link personal displays with shared displays. Something that we do not know as a research community is how specific cross-device interaction designs impact the ability of team members to engage in parallel and group work periods that happen during collaboration. So in this work, our research goal is to examine the impact of two specific cross-device interaction techniques called touch and tilt on independent and joint work periods that happen during collaboration. Touch and tilt were modeled based on existing techniques from the literature, and each one offered different levels of support for independent and joint work periods. So this is what we learned. We learned that the choice of cross-device interaction technique does matter when designing environments to support co-located group work. We also learned that despite the benefits that tilt offered for accessing out-of-reach data, touch was the preferred technique. Our qualitative data analysis also revealed two key features of touch that facilitated tightly joint work, and I will talk about that later in my talk. In order to investigate our research questions, we designed a cross-device environment to support collaborative sense-making around a geospatial data set focused on the Canadian Arctic region. We had a shared tabletop display that showed an overview map of the Canadian Arctic with data icons that had geotag data associated with them. And personal tablets were used to view the available geotag data. Each user's tablet view is represented on the tabletop map via a region of interest or ROI bounding box. And moving the ROI on the tabletop updates the tablet view to show the geotag data located within the geographic area that is covered by the ROI. To link the tabletop and the tablets, we implemented two cross-device interaction techniques called touch and tilt. Touch models existing touch-based techniques from the literature. Users control the position of the ROI box on the tabletop using direct touch manipulation. Direct manipulation of content in a shared workspace has been shown to promote workspace awareness and group coordination. Yet, touch input on a large tabletop introduces potential challenges for accessing out-of-reach areas, especially for people who are seated at the short side of the table. Our second technique was called tilt, and it models existing techniques for controlling content on a large display remotely. Users initiate movement using a hold button that is on the edge of the tablet interface. And while pressing the hold button, users can scroll across the map by tilting the tablet and stop movement by releasing the button. In this case, the physical tilting of the tablet and the associated visual movement of the ROI on the tabletop provides awareness of the respective user to their peers. Such remote cross-device interaction can facilitate individual work. However, its impact on teamwork is unclear. So given the uncertainties that we had about the impact of touch and tilt, on teamwork, we performed an empirical mixed methods study to explore the impact of the two techniques under different seating positions. We had two variables. Technique was a within subject. We provided touch only, tilt only, or both techniques. For seating position, we had people seated at the long side of the table or at the short side of the table, and this was a between subjects variable. This seating position is referred to as the kitty corner in the literature, and we know that it is the most preferred seating position for collaboration. The order of touch and tilt was counterbalanced, with both always being last. And please note that both was included to gain qualitative insights only, and it was not included in the quantitative analysis of our data. Please see our paper for details on that condition. In the interest of time, I won't talk about that. We recruited 12 pairs of participants. Pairs were recruited together, so we required them to know each other. And they were either university students or working in local technology companies. We collected data in various forms. And in our post-condition questionnaire, we had 7-point Likert scale questions on perceived awareness, ease of use, and interference. Oh, sorry. And we used ANOVA to detect any differences between the Likert scale questions. And we also performed thematic analysis of our video data. Participant pairs were tasked to collaboratively explore the map of the Canadian Arctic and available data to discover the most effective shipping route from one of the 2 land-based ports to one of the 4 sea-based oil rigs. Within the Arctic context, an effective route would be the one that is most likely to have open waters or thin ice throughout most of the year. To access and examine geotag data on their tablets, the participants needed to use touch or tilt as they were provided. And here you can see some examples of geotag data that could be viewed on tablets. For example, sea ice concentration charts and historical ice coverage during a given time period. Okay, so now let's see some results. We first examined user preference for cross-device technique and found that touch was preferred by the majority of our participants, including half of the people that were seated at the short side of the table. So this came to us as a surprise because those people had difficulty accessing out-of-reach data. We dug down deeper in the data by examining how well people understood the relationship between the information that was shown on the tabletop with the information that was displayed on their tablets. In touch, 83% of people agreed with the statement that I found it easy viewing the data on the tablet while moving the bounding box on the table at the same time. In tilt, only 66% of our participants agreed with this statement, and this difference was statistically significant. We also examined the amount of disruption that was caused by touch and tilt and found significant differences here as well. In touch, 67% of our participants reported causing interference with their partner's actions, always or often. In tilt, however, 87% of people said that they never or infrequently interfered with their partner's actions. We found a similar trend when we asked people if they felt disrupted by their partner's actions. In touch, 75% of people reported that they felt their partners interfered with their ongoing actions. In tilt, however, 96% of people said that they never or infrequently were interfered with. So this was an interesting finding. On one hand, we saw that touch was the preferred technique. On the other hand, people reported a lot of interference in that condition. So we decided to dig even deeper in the data by performing a thematic video analysis of our data. We observed that most groups employed a divide and conquer strategy to tackle the task. Each group member was responsible for individually exploring the data that was in close proximity to them. The group members then came together to share findings and arrive at a consensus. Some group members tried to explore data outside of their implicitly or explicitly assigned area. In TILT, participants could easily move their ROIs to any location on the map. In touch, however, they had to ask their partners to access the other side of the table. To better understand the results of our qualitative observations, heat map visualizations were generated from log data to show participants' ROI movements during different work periods. In the interest of time, we only showed the heat map for the touch condition and for those groups whose members tried to explore data outside of their assigned area. So on your right side, it is not surprising to see that people that were seated on the short side of the table, that's the SS participant, they had to ask for a lot of help from their partner. And these are represented by the brown squares on the heat map. But it was also interesting to see, so that's on your left side, it was also interesting to see that for the long side participants, social protocols came to play, and they were also sometimes assisted to access data in the territory of the short side participant. To highlight the reasons behind the preference ranking of touch and tilt, I will talk about 3 observed collaborative behaviors that were impacted by touch and tilt. In doing so, I will highlight features of touch that were appreciated by our participants. We observed long periods of synchronized data viewing, during which group members jointly viewed the same data items. When doing so, the 2 ROIs overlapped to create mirrored views on their tablets. Team members analyzed the displayed data together and then moved on to the next data icon. Touch and tilt supported this behavior differently. In tilt, each person had to independently manipulate their own ROI. As a group, this required considerable coordination. Each time the group wished to explore data at a different location, both partners had to use their respective tablets to relocate the ROIs. In touch, however, people took advantage of the user-agnostic feature of the technique. One person was often delegated responsibility to move both ROIs. And you may think that the ROI control might naturally be delegated to the long side participant, since they could reach the entire tabletop without any difficulty. But we observed that in most cases, proximity to the ROI determined who was responsible for moving it. The user-agnostic feature of touch that afforded flexible ownership of the ROIs was also beneficial when showing data to a partner. When discussing or debating different opinions about the data, one group member would often try to convince the other of their viewpoint by showing them relevant evidence. In Tilt, a participant had to point to a location on the map and ask their partner to move their ROI to that location. The verbal and gestural communication had to be clear to make sure that the ROI was moved to the correct location on the map. In Touch, however, people used the flexible ownership of the ROI and moved their partner's ROI for them. The third type of collaborative behavior impacted by Touch and Tilt was putting tablets side by side to arrange data in a grid-like format called Tableau to create common ground and facilitate hypothesis testing. In Touch, people were free to leave their tablets side by side on the edge of the tabletop and manipulate the ROI to view and compare data. In Tilt, however, this side-by-side comparison was not as conveniently possible since people had to be holding their tablets at the same time to relocate the ROIs. Okay, so this is the message that I'd like you to take away from this talk. Next time when you design a cross-device interaction technique, think about how it might ultimately impact collaboration. From the literature, we know that there is fundamental tension between providing powerful interactions by individuals and providing awareness of those interactions to peers. Our results show that Touch and Tilt fell in the same trap. Touch enabled people to easily share data, but limited individual power in accessing out-of-reach data. Tilt, on the other hand, enabled independent data access, but limited the ability to share data. And finally, our results also uncover two useful features of Touch that can guide us when designing new cross-device interaction techniques to support collaboration. First, the user-agnostic property of the ROI made it shareable. Many of our participants appropriated this feature to delegate the movement of both ROIs to one person during synchronized data viewing. Second, the ability to independently position and share tablets in the environment. This feature enabled groups to form Tableau to facilitate joint comparison and discussion of selected data items. That concludes my talk, and I'd like to thank Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada for funding this research, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Leila. We have maybe room for one question. Okay, did you study, did you have post-experiment questionnaires after each of the tasks?
Yes.
And did you ask participants about the effort or the fatigue? Because I can imagine, like in tilt condition, people might feel more fatigue because it kind of entails some kind of micro-maneuvering. Yeah, so we had the NASA TLX questionnaire, and people reported being like more tired after the tilt condition compared to the touch condition. So do you have any suggestions as to how to balance this?
So balance the amount of fatigue with what?
Like, can there be a kind of a fabrication in tilt and touch so that the fatigue can be, let's say, uniformly distributed amongst participants and not to have one modality which is more fatigue-inducing than the other, something like that?
So in the both condition where we provided both touch and tilt, this fatigue was reduced because most of the interactions were done with touch. But that condition did not address the entire collaborative workflow, and there is more on that in the paper.
Thank you very much. Let's thank Leila again for her presentation.